You want to know the secret sauce that separates the therapists whose clients rave about them and keep coming back from therapists who struggle to keep their calendars even half full? Today, I'm spilling the tea on the 4 non-negotiable habits that truly exceptional therapists practice religiously while the rest of the field is wondering why their clients keep taking a break or I just need to focus on work right now. And it's coming from a place of experience, not just my own. I've trained hundreds of therapists through my practice growing self. And let me tell you, it's not just about having the fanciest office or the most letters after your name. It's not even about what you know. It's honestly about how to incorporate these 4 game-changing approaches that will transform therapy into the kind that changes a life trajectory. So whether you are a seasoned therapist looking to level up, or if you're new to the field and you want to start strong, this episode of Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists will give you the exact blueprint that my most successful therapists swear by. And the best part, these are not mysterious talents. These are not things that you're even born with. These are all skills that you can develop starting today. And they're quite simple, actually. So stay with me because by the end of this episode, you will know why some therapists have wait lists and can command these huge fees while others have crickets chirping. And think about which side of that equation you want to be on and how you're going to get there. So hello, if this is your first time listening, you have stumbled across Love, Happiness, and Success for Therapists. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. Like you, I am a therapist. I'm a clinical supervisor. I'm the founder of Growing Self Counseling and Coaching. And I've been doing this for a while. And I am so excited you're here today because I have seen very specific patterns over and over and over again through my years at Growing Self, doing supervision, training therapists, mentoring them. And there are really only 4 things that very good therapists do differently. And you're going to learn what these are today. So, first of all, not random luck, not who has the most Instagram followers, and there are just these 4 things. So let's boil it all down, and I'm going to break all of these down for you with hopefully as little fluff as possible, but also leave you with some actionable details and things that you can start doing differently, like today, in order to create more impact. So, habit number 1, the very first thing that very good therapists are always doing that therapists either don't do or struggle to do, by the way, is that very good therapists have crystal clear case conceptualizations and they are sharing them. So let's just start with something that may seem very obvious, but again, is not what therapists always do. Highly effective therapists have a roadmap. They know why their clients are struggling, like exactly why. They don't get there instantly. It can take 4, 6, sometimes 8 sessions to really understand, okay, what's going on with you? How does this make sense? And what needs to happen in order for you to feel better? That does not happen overnight, but great therapists do have a process for figuring that out in a very intentional way. And also, when I'm talking about a case conceptualization, I am not talking about slapping a DSM diagnosis on someone and calling it a day. Just because you name it doesn't mean you really understand why it's there, what's going on, or how to resolve it. I'm talking about a deep, nuanced understanding of what is going on beneath the surface with your clients, the patterns, the relationships, the thoughts, the emotions, the behaviors that are creating and maintaining your client's distress, and having a clear roadmap around what needs to change within your client in order for this to be different, and what your therapy needs to be doing in order to facilitate that process. It is crucial that you have that roadmap. If you don't, it could go all over the place, and you'll be meeting every week, but it won't necessarily be going anywhere. But wait, there's more. Here is the kicker. And here is where a lot of therapists will absolutely drop the ball, even if they do have clarity around that conceptualization for themselves. The best therapists do not keep those brilliant insights locked in their head. They are sharing them with their clients out loud, in words, oftentimes over and over again. So here's an example. I remember working with a therapist, I'm going to call her Jamie, who was struggling to keep clients engaged. They'd come in, meet 3-4 times, and then it would just sort of fade away. Clients did not keep coming back. And so, part of what I do in my role at Growing Self is a lot of coaching of clinicians around, let's take a look at what you're doing in order to understand how to generate better outcomes in your therapy practice. And this could happen in a lot of different ways. But with this particular clinician, something was going on towards the beginning of the process that was really getting in her way of being able to not just create, but honestly maintain a healthy caseload. Wasn't marketing. We were flooding her with all kinds of consultation calls. She's very nice, very personable, very good at establishing rapport. So clients would be like, oh yeah, I like her, I want to do it. But then would not keep coming back. So I asked her to walk me through her process for developing a case conceptualization. And I knew that she could do this because she had really incredible, insightful ideas about clients. She would just make the most thoughtful suggestions in our consultation groups at Growing Self. So I had spent a lot of time with her. But then, just out of, on a whim almost, I asked her, so you're saying this out loud to your clients, right? And she was like, wait, what? Just looking at me like I had suggested she start, therapy sessions with an interpretive dance routine or something. But because she was like, but, I mean, I know what's going on, but I don't want to impose my worldview on them. I don't want to define their experience for them. I mean, she's very sort of old school, 70s style, experiential psychotherapist, which is fantastic, by the way. She doesn't need to be any different. But what she really needed to understand is that creating a roadmap, a shared understanding of what is going on and the path that she was going to be leading people down in order to create the healing that they needed. That's why they were coming to her. She wasn't doing that. And so she had clarity, but from the client's perspective, they were just showing up and just free associating for 45 minutes and not understanding what any of that was attached to or how it would create positive outcomes in their lives, and then wandering off again. And I'm like, why should I keep paying for this? Because they didn't understand where it was going. And so when you articulate your understanding clearly, saying things like, based on what you've shared, I'm seeing this pattern, and I think what's keeping you stuck is X, Y, Z, and what needs to happen for you to feel better and finally break free of this depressive episode is X, Y, Z. You are giving your client the gift of clarity. You're not telling them how they should feel. You're not telling them what is important to them. You are not telling them who they are, those kinds of things. But you are saying, depending on your theory of change, might say, I see you engaging in some very unhelpful black and white thinking patterns that research tells us are very reliably linked to experiences of depression. And what I know from my clinical experience is that if we help you shift that and start practicing different cognitions when the voice of depression is active, I just revealed my experiential parts therapy leanings, didn't I? When the voice of depression is active. Sorry, you guys. Anyway, this can look like a lot of different ways, but no matter how you frame it, you are giving your client that gift of clarity, because then they're like, oh, that's why she's asking me to do X, Y, Z, or that's the basis for some of these interventions, because your clients do not want to feel like they're wandering in this therapeutic wilderness. They want to know you, but also they want to know that you understand them, certainly, but they also need to know that you have a plan. And when you can articulate your case conceptualization clearly, you're essentially saying to them, I see you, I understand what's happening, and I know how to help. And that increases their trust and their faith, not just in you, but in the process. And that is not imposing a worldview. That is being the kind of person that your clients want and need. They need a confident person who they are hiring to help them have an outcome. Now, the other thing that's showing right now, as many of you know who've listened to this podcast before, I am a very proud board certified coach. And I think part of what I'm sharing, so, I do feel, and I've heard other therapists say this, when they learn evidence-based coaching psychology, the frameworks, the principles, how to use it, they will often find themselves incorporating aspects of this in their therapeutic work, and that it helps them feel more effective as therapists. And this is one of them. I mean, a good, certified, knowledgeable, competent coach always knows where they are in the process, why they're there, where they're going, what needs to happen next. That is the mandate of a good coach. And that is not always a mandate of a therapist. We can be more open-ended as therapists, but truly excellent therapists won't do that. Okay, that's the first habit. So to practice this, challenge yourself to write out a case conceptualization. I've done this so many times with clinical supervisees. Write a summary, even one paragraph. Who is this person? What is the problem? And what needs to change in order for them to find resolution in their mental health symptoms? What is the path of healing? And be able to articulate that. If you cannot articulate that to yourself, you don't understand where you are, what needs to happen, that's a problem. And if you can't articulate it to your clients, it doesn't matter if you know it or not, because you and your clients won't be on the same page. So practice that as a strategy to become a more effective therapist. Okay, let's roll into habit number 2, practice number 2 of highly effective therapists. The other thing that really good therapists are always doing is that they are mastering, not just dabbling, mastering at least one very powerful evidence-based theory of change, and they are very faithful to it. So here's what I mean. There are organized, coherent theories of change that define different client issues through a framework, an understanding that defines the problem and the solution. Examples of this would be things like cognitive behavioral therapy, internal family systems, emotionally focused couples therapy. These are theories of change that provide an explanation for therapists through the lens of this theory around here's what's going on. this couple does not have a secure attachment. They are not emotionally available to each other. They both feel alone. Or for cognitive behavioral therapy, the thinking styles that this person is engaging in are making them feel incredibly depressed and upset and anxious. And if we can change these, they will feel better. So that's what we get from our theories of change. And they're incredibly important because I'm going to be super blunt right now. Counseling skills alone are not enough to create outcomes in psychotherapy, truly. They need to be attached to something that is a more active ingredient. And so counseling skills are incredibly important. Reflective listening, open-ended questions, affirming relationships, validation, insight generation. These are all incredibly important, and they are the foundation upon which incredibly effective therapy happens, but they are not the house. You need a structured approach to creating change in order to know what to do. A solid theory of change gives you this evidence-based understanding of what creates disorder and dysfunction in the first place, and provides you with a clear roadmap for what needs to happen in the work itself in order for clients to learn something different, handle things differently, develop coping skills that will allow them to manage their symptoms and hopefully heal from them. And so many of these exist, and it's important that you find the one, maybe two, sometimes three, if you've been in this game a while, that really speak to you, fit with your personality, and are congruent with your core understanding of health and healing. So whether it is internal family systems, cognitive behavioral therapy, emotionally focused, the Gottman method, there are all kinds of flavors, right? The thing that matters the most is that you have a commitment to at least one of them, and that you have either mastered it, know the thing inside, outside, and sideways, or you are on the path to mastery if you are early in your career. And I'll just tell you, not all therapists have been exposed to this idea over the course of their training. I was very fortunate in my both my master's program and also my PhD program that I was actually required to identify, define, and then practice a very specific modality that allowed me to develop depth of understanding, competencies, nuance, and I also got to try it with different clients in a supportive environment. And this experience was crucial to my ability to grow and be effective with clients. And what I've noticed in recent years especially is that many times early career clinicians have certainly been exposed to different theoretical orientations. I mean, they could tell you about Bowennian therapy and psychodynamic therapy and like in an intellectual sense, but they were never held to defining and practicing one of them under supervision or mentorship. And so what happens is that therapists know a little bit about a lot of different things, and I'm about to ruffle some feathers, but I'm going to do it anyway. What happens is that therapists describe themselves as eclectic, which in my opinion is often, not always, but many times, actually a red flag for a therapist who is not going to be that effective, because it can be a code for, I know a little bit about a lot of things and I pick up random techniques for each one, but I am not actually leading clients along an organized, coherent journey that has a basis in something that we can trust. And it creates, when clinicians don't really have a lighthouse, they don't have a compass or an organizing theory, they often feel confused about what's going on. And that shows up in client sessions. We're talking about a different thing every week. We're talking about different ideas or tools or worksheets or stuff every single week. And clients, it starts to feel like, wait, what am I supposed to be doing? Or how is this connected to what I really want? Clients can feel the difference. And so it is critically important that you get real clear and committed to mastering your craft. So the actionable thing here is that if you haven't had the opportunity to do this already, or if you've been out of school a long time and need a refresher, choose the one, maybe two, possibly three approaches to really devote yourself to and commit to becoming an expert in those. So get advanced training, join consultation groups, get mentorship, read the books, watch the master's work if you can, and practice. This focused mastery is also, I will just say, why it is additionally so important to identify a niche, because when you have clarity around who it is that you are seeking to serve and an understanding that different theories are more appropriate and effective to deal with different presenting issues, that also is related to the third habit of highly effective therapists, which is that they specialize. I think that all therapists, particularly in private practice, you can't always control who's walking in the door. So we need to be generalists to a degree, to the meaning that we can know enough to know what we are looking at and what this person probably needs in terms of help and guidance and treatment, speaking of psychotherapy, so that we can be defining pretty quickly, is this in my wheelhouse, or do I need to make an appropriate referral to somebody who could really help this person in the way that they need to be helped? So therapists who are excellent and effective do not try to be excellent at everything. They have typically chosen through their own growth work, one, two, maybe three pretty specific client presenting issues. And they really, really understand all of the different variables and experiences that go along with this presenting issue. They are true subject matter experts. And so when it comes to things like specializing in a specific subset of mood disorders, maybe it's anxiety, depression, but you can get more nuanced. We could go into being an expert around obsessive compulsive disorder or bipolar disorder or post-traumatic stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, eating disorders. I mean, there's so many different things. And I think anybody who really understands these well knows that while they can have some common elements, to really be good at these, you need to devote yourself to understanding what is going on with somebody who has bipolar disorder. You need to know about medications, different approaches, different phases of this disorder, how it shows up for different people, different types, how to see one coming, how to create stability. It's a specific thing. And what you also see is that the professionals have typically invested in developing deep expertise in this area. They've done postgraduate training that helps them specialize. They've sought out specialized supervision, read research, have put themselves into work environments that allow them to develop additional competencies, with autism spectrum disorders and a hospital setting or an assessment setting. I mean, we can go really deep. And when you think about this, think about a similar trajectory that medical doctors go on. I mean, you don't just graduate from medical school and be like, hey, everybody, I'm here. No, they go through a period of time where they are being exposed to many different types of illnesses or injuries, different types of medicine that encourages them to identify and then define, and many of them wind up then focusing pretty specifically on that one thing. So really good therapists are doing that too, because it accomplishes two super powerful things. First of all, it makes your clinical work significantly more effective because you're not constantly reinventing the wheel. You're not, seeing different things every day and now trying to figure out this thing. I mean, you have developed a refined approach that works because you've seen this pattern many, many, many times before. So that is one thing. I mean, and I'll say this too. I mean, at the beginning of my career, I think this happens to a lot of therapists. We're just starting out. We'll talk to anybody, right? And also, if we work in agency settings, like many times we need to be able to deal with people who have a lot of different presenting issues. But I mean, looking back to the beginning of your career, were you really conducting all of those different types of therapies and treatment plans really, really well? Or were there a couple types of clients and presenting issues where you're like, I know kind of a lot about that one, and felt just much more confident, more clear? We're helping your clients get better results in their treatment. I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, that is frequently the truth. And I think we need to have it be okay that we can't be everything to everybody. But another thing I will also say, and this is, I think, related to being an effective therapist, can also make you a more successful therapist, is that when we get clear about our area of expertise, it also makes our marketing really easier. It helps us connect more effectively through referrals if we develop a reputation for being particularly good at something. Through networking, we can become the person in the professional group who does amazing work with children who have lived through complex trauma or whatever it is. But you'll be able to say, I help people with this specific problem, and here's how. When you even talk to prospective clients, when you talk to colleagues, when you put stuff out there on your website, rather than something that feels kind of vague and that might not really fit what somebody is looking for. Because remember, people need to be able to trust you and your competence, and part of how they make those decisions about whether or not to work with you is whether or not what you're saying you do is a match for what it is that they want. Now, I will also tell you that there are different ways of developing specialized competencies when it comes to being effective in clinical mental health. It is also true that particularly in this day and age, and I think that there's been a proliferation of this in the last 3 to 5 years, is that increasingly therapists, and this is with the rise of coaching, therapists are now being asked to help clients with things that we do not get explicit training in. So things like general self-development, goal attainment, improving relationships, career development, life transitions, navigating a divorce, being more effective at XYZ. So people are showing up to talk to therapists about this stuff, which is great, but these also require special competencies. And a lot of clinicians don't realize this. They think, oh, therapy, yes, good. Well, let's just talk about it, and try to use some of these models, these theories of change that were designed for treating mental health conditions with non-clinical clients who, stay in the ring with you for 4, 5, 6 sessions, but then start to be like, okay, so why are we still talking about my parents' divorce? Because what I really want to do is create this outcome in my life, and I'm no longer understanding how these things are relating. So what do I need to do tomorrow in order to get a better reaction from my kid the next time? So that kind of stuff. There's benefit certainly in connecting dots and generating insight that happens through evidence-based coaching psychology, but therapists need to develop competencies in working effectively with non-clinical clients too. And then it's not just learning a coaching framework and how to apply it. It is then thinking about your theory of change and your specialized subject matter expertise and how all those things fit together. And that is like one of the things that therapists are learning in my coaching certification for therapists program, and hopefully others, because we need to learn how to apply all of these different ideas in a different way. So figure out who you are, what kind of work you want to do, the theory of change that best supports this, and then become dedicated to mastering your craft. Now, there is one last habit that helps therapists become highly effective, and this is something that tends to grow over time. This is a competency that is earned. And it requires time, it requires intention, it requires practice. This is being committed to the things that we have been talking about: case conceptualizations, theories of change, understanding who you are seeking to serve, but then also maintaining some flexibility in your approach, which may sound like it contradicts what we were just talking about, but it doesn't. The final habit that truly distinguishes outstanding therapists is the fact that they have enough knowledge of more than one way of being helpful to people. And they are willing to modify this approach when necessary. And this is not being eclectic in a scattered sense of, doing a different thing in every session. It means having a deep mastery of more than one theory of change or core modality so that they can adapt to different clients' needs and learning styles. So, personal example, I love emotionally focused couples therapy. I put a great deal of time into mastering this craft and mastering this modality, particularly earlier in my career. I attended trainings, I sought out supervision, I practiced it, and when I was a young therapist, any couple coming to me is like, and now we shall cry, right? I mean, like going all the way in and helping people understand attachment and how their dynamic is impacting each other, and I still do it to this day, love it so much. And I became aware of something humbling, which is that even when I was doing a great job of executing on this modality very faithfully in the way that I was taught, the way it air quote, should be done, making Sue Johnson proud, it did actually not work that well for some clients, not because emotionally focused couples therapy is flawed, but because these particular clients needed something different. They were more cognitive people. They were more intellectual. They wanted to understand rather than feel. And they really valued a more skills-based approach. And so in these cases, because I would have clients showing up and being unhappy with me when I was doing exactly the same thing that I was doing with other clients who are benefiting from it. So I was like, what's going on? And I needed to be able to pivot and have another skill set under my belt that allowed me to show up in a way that this type of client wanted and needed me to be. They benefited more from a cognitive behavioral or Gottman-based theory of change. Now, I needed to learn this and not kind of make it up as I'm going along, but it was really become invested in another complete model that I have also taken the time to master. And then on top of that, I also need to be able to differentiate. Now, this is based on my practice and my specialization. I don't do clinical mental health treatment. I specialize in helping people grow and attain different outcomes through self-development. So I'm helping people grow into the kinds of person who can have a more fulfilling relationship by taking action, by learning new things, by doing things differently. I am not here to treat longstanding historical trauma that is coming up in the context of a relationship that is making people reactive. And, because there's definitely a dimension for that. And so what I also need to be doing in that role is thinking broadly about what modality does a client need, because I can do clinical mental health treatment. I can use emotionally focused couples therapy as a mental health care modality, which is very effective for things like major depressive disorder, historical trauma. I mean, a lot of evidence to support that. But I also need to be thinking about, is that what this person is asking me for? Or am I talking to a couple who really just wants to stop fighting, get on the same page about finances, feel more intimately connected, have a better sex life, have more fun together? We're not treating a disorder. We're helping this person grow and do things differently in their relationship. Therefore, I am going to use an evidence-based coaching model with the theory of change that this couple would benefit the most from. So there is a lot of complexity here, and I hope you're not feeling overwhelmed. You might be thinking about, oh my gosh, there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of stuff that I need to be thinking about. Everything from case conceptualizations to theories of change to different modalities and being able to assess clients and you know what? It's true. It is actually a lot to learn. And that is why therapists who are really, really good at this are so good, is that they are embracing a growth mindset. They have this deep drive and desire to do a really good job. They are conscientious. They are caring. They take their responsibility to their clients very, very seriously. Like if somebody is going to trust me and pay me money in order to help them get a handle on depression once and for all, or to, on the other side of this, create a completely new chapter for my relationship, who do I need to be as a therapist in terms of my professional competencies in order to deliver that with excellence? And today we talked about the 4 different things that you need to be doing in order to make that happen. And not gonna lie, it is a lot, and it takes time and investment and intention to do that. Graduate school is a starting point, but then the real work begins once we get out of there, once we're licensed, once we're out of clinical supervision, and now we're tasked with having to think about all of this in the context of, an evolving career. So I know this is a lot. I have resources for you. One is a fantastic book. I love it so much. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. It's called Mastery. The author is Robert Greene, and he's written a number of different books, but Mastery really talks about this process of developing excellence through hard work and the different stages and phases of development that people go through on that trajectory. I think it's wonderfully written and very insightful. So that's one resource I will share with you. And then additionally, I think that there's a lot of benefit in doing some reflection on your professional niche building, on your identified theory of change, and on developing those case conceptualization skills. Now, case conceptualization skills is outside the scope of a free resource that I currently have available, but I do have a free resource that can help you with some of the other two. So if you come to my website, growingself.com, I developed a free 2-part training series for therapists who are in a place where they're thinking about making some changes in their careers, and they need to figure out, first of all, some new career goals to get clarity around what it is that they really want to do professionally. It may be identifying a different niche, a different client population, or potentially learning more about a different modality. And so in this 2-part training series, I'll be walking you through a series of exercises that will help you get clarity about that. And then another thing you'll get in this training, just because, at Growing Self, we are therapists who specialize in evidence-based coaching psychology. And after many years of teaching this to clinicians within my practice, I developed a training program for clinicians outside my practice to develop these competencies to become board certified coaches. So my training program is in alignment with the NBCC's Center for Credentialing and Education's attainment of the board certified coaching credential, which is a very legitimate credential. It is the one that therapists get. You have to do an accredited training program like mine. You have to pass an exam. You have to document experience hours. You have to do continuing education to maintain the credential. This is the real deal. My program does this through a 30-hour self-paced academy, through a live class experience, and also through an internship. So 3 different levels. And because I'm an approved continuing education provider, my program also awards continuing education hours for the time and energy that you put into obtaining this credential. So either 30, 40, or 50 continuing education hours. And so I have clinicians coming to my practice interested in learning more about the modality of coaching psychology. If they're thinking, yes, I really enjoy working with non-clinical clients, I want to do more of this. What are the competencies I need to learn? In this free 2-part training I was telling you about, part 1 is figuring out who you are, what you want to do with this one wild and precious life. Part 2 is, if you decide coaching psychology is something that is going to be important for you to develop mastery in, here is what is involved in becoming a coach. Here are some of the differences between coaching and therapy. Here's some coaching specific skills you'll need to learn, and certainly more detailed information about the process of becoming a legitimate certified therapist who coaches. All right. So that is it for today. I hope that this conversation was helpful. And if you have follow-up questions, comments, or just want to say hi, get in touch with me on LinkedIn. Look me up, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby, and all the free resources that I just mentioned, and many, many more, including all my podcasts, articles, quizzes, webinars, is available for you for free right now on my website, growingself.com. Okay, thanks for spending this time with me today, and I will talk to you again soon.